I just really like to say that the Chinese martial arts is for the small and the humble. So what got me thinking about this, I want to try to explain why a Chinese person should be teaching the Chinese martial arts, and why, a Japanese person should be teaching Japanese martial arts, a Thai person should be teaching the Thai martial arts, a Korean person should be teaching the Korean martial arts. I feel these labels are created by this culture of people. Under certain circumstances, they have a certain expression in what they do that's a part of their blood that cannot be just replicated um, just by learning a few skill sets. There's a certain upbringing. Like in China, you know, the way of life is different. You know, the religions are different. Their outlook in life is different. Like in America, you're taught to pretty much be very arrogant. But in the East, like in China, it's supposed to be more humble. In America, you know, there's just an overabundance of food. In some of these Eastern countries, they're very poor, and there's not that much food. In America, you know, there's very large people, very tall, very big. In these Eastern countries, it's like the opposite: malnourished, small, fragile. So when you say Chinese, when you think about Chinese, you're like, oh, small people. And yeah, Chinese people are small. When you're thinking about an American, white person, black person, large person, big, strong, muscular, or obese, very tall, dominating. So when you think about Chinese, they're smaller, they're shy, soft spoken, introverted, humble, modest, weak. I mean, like you think about the stereotypes, but you classify these people, there's a certain makeup with this race that's very different from the white and the black in America. So the Chinese martial arts, the expression of it is going to be very different than an American expression. So you think about the Chinese martial arts and you think about something like Western boxing, it's a very different expression. It's more artistic, not as competitive, more graceful, less violent, more humble. So the art is designed to be like less aggressive. It's supposed to be more modest, more humble, and essentially for true self-defense, not for competition, but for self-defense. But in the West, it's like you're teaching people that are already large, strong, big. They're already a threat. They probably own guns. They're already very violent, very aggressive. And then what, you want to teach them more martial arts so then they can abuse what they know? Because it's very American to abuse what you have. So rather than using a gun for self-defense, they use a gun to harm people, to commit crime, to commit suicide, to murder people. So martial arts is not supposed to be used for the wrong intentions. It's when you think about, if you teach a bunch of Chinese people martial arts, it's like teaching a bunch of small people how to defend themselves against a bunch of large people. So essentially, there needs to be some sort of determination of who should be learning the arts and who should not. Now, I don't necessarily agree that all big people shouldn't learn, because I know for a fact that just because you're big doesn't mean that you can fight. So what is important is not, I'm not saying that only Chinese people should learn. I'm saying that the right people should learn that are going to be using the martial arts for good purposes. And part of it is size. I mean, if you got a really small person, or even a woman who, you know, who could very easily be taken advantage of by somebody bigger and stronger, it's like part of your duty to help them feel more protected, to feel safer. And that's what the martial arts is for. You know, specifically the Chinese martial arts. You know, that's what it's supposed to be for. You know, smaller people, women, people that are taken advantage of, people that are bullied. It's not, martial arts is not supposed to be taught to like the people that are already large and huge and dominating and arrogant and aggressive. Like, martial arts is being taught to like football players and wrestlers and basketball players and just extremely large, aggressive people, not for self-defense, but for entertainment and for the glorification of violence. And that is why a lot of Americans do not deserve to learn the Chinese martial arts. And that's why, you know, I can fully understand why the Chinese in the past were very careful of who they would share their arts to. You're not supposed to teach it to the wrong people. I'm not saying that all Americans, but it's in the culture of America to be a certain way. You know, you see it in the media and how they treat, you know, people of the East. You know, how they mock them, how they make fun of them, how they disrespect them, and then now you're going to go ahead and teach these people martial arts? You know, like, there needs to be a strong sense of respect, and the teacher who's teaching it has to get to know the student to see what their intentions are, and to see, essentially to see if they have a good heart. So it doesn't matter what race you are. It doesn't matter if you're weak or strong. What matters is, do you have a good heart and you're going to be using the martial arts for the right reasons, the right purposes? If not, then you should not be learning. Or you shouldn't progress beyond a certain level, because simply you're not ready for that, those types of teachings. That's how I see it, you know. And, you know, these arts are for the people of the East to make this determination. Now, if you have a white American who's teaching Kung Fu Of course he's gonna teach all his friends and all his buddies and whoever he wants to learn, because he doesn't care. If essentially it's like teaching a bully the martial arts, and then now he's gonna teach all his other bully friends. So one mistake, teaching one bully, could lead towards the creation of thousands and millions of other bullies. You know, and the teachings to me need to be more restricted, better regulated. The Chinese Kung Fu should remain for the Chinese. Only the Chinese should teach it. I'm not saying only the Chinese should learn it. I'm saying people of all races can learn as long as they have a good heart, but only the Chinese should teach it. And so on and so forth for all the other arts from the other countries. Like if you're an American, you could go ahead and teach your wrestling, go ahead teach your football, go ahead teach your basketball, go ahead teach your boxing, but do not teach the Chinese martial arts because it's not in your blood. You cannot learn how to be a minority. You know, it's just you're either born a minority or you're born into the dominant race. And if you're born into the dominant race, you just cannot fully understand how it's like to live as a minority for your entire life and to go through the struggles of what minorities go through. So it's almost like humbleness is born, you're born with it because you've been treated a certain way since birth. You've never been even ever given a chance to feel entitled for anything. You have to work hard for everything. You know, and it's like you cannot just replace a Chinese person by just teaching a white guy a few combat moves and just be like, okay, now you can teach Kung Fu. It's like, that's not what it is. The Chinese martial arts goes very deep. You know, it's representing entire culture and way of life and people. You know, I could understand maybe if a white person is teaching the Chinese martial arts and he actually lives in China for his entire life. But that typically is never the case. It's like people watch a few movies and then they want to start claiming labels and titles of which they have no direct roots towards. And that to me is not right. You know? Like, these labels belong, the origin of it belongs to people from that country. And they have rights to those labels. You know, and they might corrupt it themselves, but that's up to them. If there's there's going to be Chinese people in China that they're going to disrespect their own labels and misrepresent their own labels, but that's on them. But I do not agree to a foreigner going in to destroy labels and take labels as they so choose, and then doing whatever they want to do with it. You know, another example that I thought of today is, I listen to a lot of hip hop music, and Tupac, for example, is one of my favorite artists, and he's black, and he uses the N-word all the time in his music, and that N-word, there's something about that word that makes the music just so much better. But he's black and he could use that word because that's a part of his people. That's his people. That's his culture. And then now you got some artists like I think Drake is like half white, half black. He uses the N word too. Well, the only reason he can use that label in my eyes is because he's half black. Now, if you got a person that's just white, like Eminem, he can't use that word just because he hangs around with a lot of black people, or he grew up in the hood, or he grew up poor, doesn't give him the right to just use the N word whenever he feels like it, for artistic reasons or not. Like, he's not black, even though he might talk black. He might hang around with a lot of black people. It still doesn't. He's still not black. He still needs to be like. He still needs to submit to some authority of a black in order to even get into that type of game and make money off the rap, because the rap is a part of the black culture. Yes, he might rhyme well. He might be popular because he's the first white person to get into the hip hop, but he does not. He is not the head person calling all the shots, and he still needs to be under the authority of somebody else that's representing that culture of people. And that's how I feel the martial arts is supposed to be. You know, if you're Japanese, then you're going to be representing the Japanese martial arts. You're Chinese, you represent the Chinese martial arts. You're Thai, you represent the Thai martial arts. You know. And then in the rare cases, then it might be otherwise, where if you're a white person that was born in China and you lived there all your life, and then out of all the Chinese people, they didn't select them, they ended up selecting you to represent their art form, which is a rare case, then okay, you know, so be it. But that's not the case that I see that's going on out there. You know, um, I think that it's important, you know, that if we're going to use these labels, that we use them properly. You know, you see people, you know, they say they're practicing Kung Fu, but then they call their place a dojo. It's like, those words are not even from the same country. You're just taking whatever words that you want to take, so then you could exploit the label, make money off the label, and you don't even have rights to use that label. And I think that's one of the main reasons why there's such a lack of respect for the martial arts, is because there's just an immense amount of corruption within the industry, that even if you've been training and practicing and studying for many years, many decades, you still get lost in this confusion. I mean, because even at the age of 34, about to turn 35, this stuff is very complex, because there's no governmental agency there protecting the labels and trademarks, or whatever the case may be, of these labels that have been created from the East. So you just have a lot of people taking whatever labels that they want to take and just exploiting it for whatever reasons they want to exploit it for. So you got people out there claiming that they teach jiu-jitsu, they teach judo, they teach aikido, they teach krav maga, they teach kung fu, they teach wing chun, they teach hung gar, they teach kali, they teach MMA, they teach boxing, they teach wrestling. That's like somebody claiming, you ask them what their profession is, and they're like, oh, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm a dentist, I'm an architect, I'm a graphic designer, I'm an actor, I'm an actress, I'm a professional basketball player, I'm a professional football player. I'm a professional tennis player. It's just a lot of corruption out there. And I think that people need to be more aware of what they're trying to represent in the martial arts. And clarify, you know? And where are your roots? Who are you learning from? What are you representing? Like, who are you? So I just see a lot of issues out there. You know, I think a lot of the wrong people are being taught the martial arts, and the way that it's being expressed is not what real martial arts is about. They've turned it into extremely violent sport. But the martial arts is supposed to be for the humble. It's supposed to be for the people that have good hearts. But it's like the opposite. People are learning it. Very aggressive, like competitive, arrogant people that abuse their power over others. These are the people that are learning it, and it's making the reputation of the martial arts even worse than it already is. And I think that it needs to be better regulated, but more so self-regulated, where people have a genuine understanding through common sense of the corruption that's going on. It's like, what is really authentic? So, for example, I could tell people that I'm American because I was born here. But I can't go around telling people that I'm black. Right away you know that I'm lying. I can't tell people that I'm white because right away you know I'm lying. I can't tell people that I'm Brazilian because right away you know I'm lying. And even if I told people that I'm Japanese, some people might believe me, but if you really check up on my history, you know that's a lie as well. So, to me, like, if a person's white, he shouldn't say he's Chinese. If a person's white, he shouldn't say that he's black. If a person's white, he shouldn't say he's Hispanic. He should just simply be truthful and say that he's white. And that, to me, is an easy identifier. You see somebody who's lying about his own race, why is he lying? And if you catch one lie, then be ready for more to come. So, if you got a white person who's claiming Kung Fu, my question is, why is he claiming Kung Fu when he's white? Like, there has to be some reason of why he's claiming that. To me, the Chinese have rights to those labels. And it has to be a responsible Chinese person that actually has developed enough skill or enough of You know, a Chinese person that has essentially developed enough of his art in order to give somebody else the right to use that label. Because not any Chinese person should be able to authorize a foreigner to use a certain label just because he's Chinese. You know, I think there's just a lot of abuse of these labels going on. You know, so for example, in America, not anybody can just go around saying that they're a professor. Because if everybody did do that, it would discredit the real professors out there. It would destroy what it even means to be a professor. Not everybody should just go around saying that they're a doctor, or they're a lawyer, or they're a police officer. Everybody that goes around making these false claims, it takes away the hard work of the people that have worked to gain that title legitimately. But yet, these labels of the East are unprotected. Essentially, anybody could say that they're a sensei, a sifu, or a teacher of karate, an instructor of jujitsu, an instructor of kung fu, an instructor of wushu, because there is no regulations out there. We need to make our own decisions, you know, as far as where we should draw the line. And all I'm saying is that there's all these different labels coming from different countries, and we should use the label properly. You know, if you're half white and you're half Chinese, like Shannon Lee, you know, Bruce Lee's daughter, then she could go using Eastern labels from the Chinese. She could use an English label. It's up to her. If you're half black, you're half white, you got that option. You could rap like a black person, or you could rap like a white person. It's up to you. If you're a Chinese person, then you could use the Chinese labels. And then you're born in America, you live in America, then you could use the American labels. But, you know, just because, you know, you watched a few movies, you know, from Mexico or whatever, and then you learn a little Spanish, and then don't think that you own that culture just because you have a liking towards it. And then you start claiming things from that culture, of which that's not even where your roots are. You know, every single martial art takes a lifetime to study. So it is essentially illogical for somebody to say that they practice, that they teach, not just practice, but they teach kung fu, and they teach karate, and they teach jujitsu, and they teach Thai boxing. It is essentially illogical, because in your lifetime you only have enough time to practice one art, because the art is completely, fully comprehensive. So with this whole thing going on, with this whole MMA thing, I think it's creating a lot more further confusion, and it's really created very much disrespect for all arts out there, where people don't respect arts. They think that they could just go from this place to take what they want, go to that place, take what they want, go to this place, take what they want, and then just mumble it all together, mumble jumble it all together, and say that they mastered everything, that they're a master of every single thing out there. And that, to me, is completely illogical. And that's not what real Kung Fu is about. That's not what being a master is about. That's like the complete opposite of Kung Fu. Somebody that just doesn't even have the discipline to even learn anything. They just get so bored easily and they quit easily and go on to the next thing because they just have no commitment, no loyalty in what they do. So I just think that this is something to think about. You know, when you're born into a certain culture, that's who you are for life. Like, my roots go back to China, that's what I am for life. So that's what I'm representing. But when you come from a group of people that do not have martial arts as a part of your culture, then you need to decide which culture you're going to represent and stick to it. You can't really be jumping around. Having such a lack of direction and loyalty, because then you just become a joke and you don't master anything. So those are just some thoughts I wanted to share.